Okay, hello, welcome back to another game of chess. We're playing e4 as per flipping usual. We see a Sicilian. We're going to go for a3 here, of course, a Mengarini Sicilian. You don't dare. You don't dare fully accept my Mengarini, do you? If you play d5, okay, fair enough. They would be signing their death note. I think that's an anime. I'm not a particular anime fan, but I believe that is in fact an anime. Shout out all you weirdos that watch anime. I'm joking. Not trying to lose subscribers. The anime chess crossover is probably immense. Right. What am I doing here? They play e6, which by I mean e6 with an arrow drawn correctly from e7. I think we go bishop d3. I'm pretty happy with this. If you play for d5, which is kind of often the idea of playing e6, you want to play for d5 but support with the pawn. If takes you might be able to take, then fair enough. But I can just play e5 now. And we get this nice pawn chain pointing directly towards where my opponent's almost certainly going to be castled. You'd be a brave, well, I don't know, bravery is the virtue. If we're talking Aristotelian virtue ethics, probably rashness in, the excess of bravery is the vice that would be demonstrated through an erroneous, I would argue, queenside castles here. So you'd imagine their king ends up here. My bishop is therefore pretty well placed on d3, just eyeballing h7 for the rest of the game pretty much. I can chill on this diagonal. I'm pretty happy here. Now, they're going to have to move this knight again if they want to move the bishop. You don't want to play g6 and concede a hole here, I don't think. Bishop g5 starts to look nasty. In fact, why not consider bishop g5 now? Because you can't play f6 immediately, just takes. So we do set up a little pin there. I'd imagine they can very easily unpin with like a queen b6, let's say. But who knows? I don't know, knight d2 and then like rook b1. We could harass that queen. It's not completely outside the realm of possibility that would be a decent idea. Do you know what? I think I'm going to go for this. It's an idea that I don't think I've ever played before. And if you go h6, I can just step back here. And h6, every time I see h6, especially with a bishop looking at this g6 square, I mean, you've just weakened g6. There are two pawns that defend g6. Now one of them will never do so again. It's not quite a hole, but, it's one step closer to being. And this is where you start to see maybe, a cool sacrifice on the g file, or rather on g6 specifically more than just the g file in general. Or maybe there's like some sense in which this pawn becomes overworked, or you can never push it now because of this. I feel as though merely inducing h6 already does great things in terms of softening up the king side, which, as I've inferred, is probably where that king is going to end up. So I'm already very happy with my position. Maybe I'll take this idea into the future, who knows? But they've got their queen on c7 clearly unpinning. I don't know why they didn't just do that first. I guess h6, it's not a bad sort of knee-jerk reaction to seeing something put on g5. Do I need to worry about pressure on here? If I move my knight, maybe I do, but I'm not compelled to move that knight. Although, bonsoir, knight a3, how about that? a6 is going to serve no purpose. Hold on. Right, this is a no-brainer. I attack the queen. I'm sorry, but you've got to move it. Now I can consider what on earth is going on here. Maybe I get kicked. Fine. But maybe that wasn't actually a great idea. I will have to now get rid of this bishop, unless I want to go takes. But again, exploiting the dark squares, or rather, sorry, the light squares around here, I wouldn't really be able to do that. I've got a very nice bishop. I kind of wouldn't mind if here and you took, honestly. Maybe I get an open f file, but maybe I get an open h file. I mean, I could play check and just gambit a pawn to get rid of the knight. Here, you take. I don't really see why I'd do that, though. I guess bishop g3. I just don't love it. I think I may have slightly misplayed things. I might be getting kicked about here now, unless I wish to take this, but I just kind of really don't. I do isolate this pawn here. Maybe just takes, and then this is weak. But I prefer keeping this excellent bishop. Right, we're playing bishop g3. Maybe they choose to snap this off. I actually highly doubt they do. I think they're going to leave the knight there in the way of my bishop. And yeah, just kick my knight. Okay, maybe we could make some vague ad hoc argument that I'm inducing weaknesses in the dark squares. I think, honestly, I got a bit sort of monkey-brained there with knight b5 as a one-move threat. However, the queen's got to come back out to c7 probably. It's not like it's a productively placed piece on b8, I don't think. Okay, yeah, I'll just come back to a3. Why even think about it? Here and here, actually. In terms of rerouting to maybe try and get rid of this without having to get rid of my bishop, because this is an annoying piece, knight c2, knight e3 is not a bad shout at all. In terms of where you're going to be able to develop this, oh my lord, what is that? Can I sack a knight is my first question. Takes, bishop d7. It seems as though I cannot sack a knight. I feel like you always just have bishop d7. Also, this might be concerning. I am marginally scared. I'm just going to go knight, knight c2. We're fine. Maybe I'm preventing this. Maybe rook b1. I don't know. You do have a passed pawn here. They fianchetto now. Fair enough. Fianchettoing where, though? I mean, you're sort of biting on granite here. Trying to go perpendicular to your pawn chain, but It makes some sense. Right, knight e3. Let's just ask the question of this knight. Maybe I could have taken and then gone knight e3 and like forked a pair of pawns. I think at the worst case scenario, they would have had this knight e7 to be able to hold both. So I don't think we were actually winning anything there. Now is a really interesting opportunity to take back with the f pawn, because you'd assume taking with the h pawn is kind of the more principled thing to do. You know, take towards the center, get the open rook. But then again, if I'm going to play knight f3 in castle, why would I not want the open f file there? It seems like a less sort of principled, mature decision. But in terms of activity, in terms of imminent activity, I think I'm gonna maybe, you know, I'm hearing the echoes of the Garry Kasparov quote where he says, good players know the principles and use the principles, and great players know when to break them. I mean, dare I consider myself a great player? Not really, but I can consider myself a pretty decent player, and I like it. I do like it. I want to get castle kingside. Once I'm there, I can maybe play h3, king h2, and just be very safe in here. I think it's clearly a bit of an unorthodox decision. They castle directly into this, really? Should I just do this and this? Is it that simple? It does seem like, I mean, all your pieces are locked out. Your knight, how is it coming across? Your bishop locked out here. Your queen's on b8, comically far away from the king side. The rook just has one move here. This bishop, I mean, how many moves does that really have? While I'd imagine castling's a great idea, is it as simple as bishop c2, queen d3? Probably not. Let's just start with castling. Maybe it will be, and maybe I'm going to be slightly regretful. But they bring their queen in. You're going to try and do some kind of bishop g5, are you? Something like that. I just think these light squares are soft. I think your bishop, you know, you've got a light squared pawn complex here. Obviously, you've got two pawns on the dark squares, but, you know, it's predominantly light squares. And on the queen side, it's a light squared pawn complex. So, like, how are you just using this bishop at all? I genuinely think it's as simple as step back and play queen here. I don't really see... Like, this is just a potent threat. My knight's in a very interesting position as well. Like, maybe knight g4 and we can try and sacrifice something. They now play g6 to build up against the threat, but now you're starting to see they've pushed quite a few pawns here. This is a hole. They've immediately rendered this a hole. Knight g4 now. If h5, and I go in here with check, you take, and then you pick this up, but then I go knight here, maybe? Should I, like, stack rooks first? That would seem like a productive thing to do. That would seem like a pretty productive thing to do, like rook here and here. Do you know what? I'm going to start with queen d3. We're going to keep that pressure over there. I just don't believe in this at all. I think your bishop's useless. I also kind of think this bishop's... I think your pieces are useless, basically, is what I think. You can bring that bishop in. I don't know why I care. I don't want to necessarily take it and just give you queen here. Why not just play knight here? And now... it kind of feels like, again, we've got a wall here. And I believe I hinted at the start of the video towards the fact that this pawn chain is pointing towards this king. You know, my opponent is attacking perpendicularly, or rather, sorry, most of my opponent's pieces have to break perpendicularly across this pawn chain to then get at my king, whereas mine, you know, they flow with the position. There's something which, I don't know, it's not a very rigorous idea, but it's just this vague heuristic to get a good feeling. What the hell is that? They're going to play on. They're going to play on. I mean, look at this, by the way. This is so nasty. Yeah, I mean, it was a matter of time before they collapsed under the pressure. But yeah, playing with the sort of grain of the position. You know, when you've got a nice locked up pawn structure, I don't know, it really helps me to think of it in this way. Okay, they're going to move their bishop. Great. If this knight moves, they're in a lot of trouble, I guess. Let's just play g4. I mean, they can't move anything, which is, I guess, good news. I kind of want to move this knight to then sack a rook here or something. I might just go after this pawn, though, nice and easy. Okay, that's... a crazy decision. Surely you resign now? No? Okay. You're really gonna just keep playing. Just keep playing, yeah? Okay, now we resign. Fair enough. I mean, that was a speedy, everything falls apart capitulation. One move. Obviously, it wasn't a great move, queen here, but look how ready to pounce all of my pieces were. And then, honestly, that conversion in terms of going takes here, picking this up, and then immediately occupying that hole with the rook, will hit an analysis board. I think that was slick as hell. Just before we analyze that game, I'd like to take a quick moment to thank the sponsor of this video, chessreps.com. Chessreps is an opening website that contains a plethora of opening courses, anything from the fried liver all the way to, unfortunately, the London system. The courses are super digestible. If we look at this fried liver one, I click learn here. You can see it walks you through up top top. I'm going to get through this real quick. I've been learning a little bit of the fried liver, not because I'm going to play it, because I, of course, play the Scotch, but because I can transpose into it from the Eurosoft Gambit, I do believe. Knight c3 here. And because this is the point I've learned up to, Chester Reps now comes in. Black retreat the knight to e6. This is too passive. Now pawn to d4 is immediately extremely strong. Okay. And if they want to open up the center, we can do it for them. D takes e5. Bishop to g5. Bishop takes d5. Knight b5 check. Pawn to e6. Bishop d2. And then bang. Thank you very much. Crazy line. You can then practice the opening, drill the opening, you can race against the clock, you can do puzzles from the opening specifically. It's got a beautiful UI, super slick and easy to use, so check them out if you're interested. The link's in the description. Let's get on with analyzing that game. I don't know, we'll see this load. I imagine this all looks extremely winning, as long as this was a relatively smooth slope upwards. Oh, why are we down here? Why are we down here? Okay, so not quite, you know, perfect chess at all, but -2. Yeah, f takes g3, fair enough. I wonder what their punishing ideas were. I knew this wasn't very principled. You know, bro thought he was Gary Kasparov skull emoji. Someone put that in the comments, please. And then obviously at this... Oh, hold on. This moment was a major blunder. I played this correctly and then... Obviously this was... Hold on. This wasn't even a mistake. Their position... sorry, excuse me. This wasn't even a blunder. It was only a mistake. This position is so bad. This position is so bad that just hanging a full piece, because you cannot recapture as your queen's going to be lost, which by I mean, excuse me, recapturing is the best move. So blundering a fork, basically, is a mistake, not a blunder. Blundering a queen... That should speak to just how terrible this position was for black. And I don't know, I thought, yeah, castling for them was a blunder, which honestly, that makes sense. As soon as they'd castled, I felt wildly comfortable with the sort of general attack that was going to ensue. Castling, a rare instance of making the king far less safe. Beginners are taught to castle early and often. It's kind of this principle that makes your king, in general, less attackable. But if I'm just setting up the whole game, waiting for you to castle kingside, don't do it, maybe. They should have apparently just played on the queen side. And yeah, I mean, this b4 break I was vaguely aware of. Apparently, yeah, it was not by no means perfect, but a pretty good and entertaining and hopefully a little instructive game of chess. Let's have a proper analyze here. So e4, they go for a Sicilian. We go for this Mengarini here, of course. b4 takes, c3, knight goes back, d4. Now, again, as you can see, or rather, sorry, as you can't see here, if they play d5, the win rate for white is obscenely high, over 250,000 games. It's absolutely disgusting. Or I should say more like 2/7 of a million games. And this is played 50% of the time, but the next most popular move, e6, is what we saw here, roughly 1/4 of the time, or again, roughly 2/7 of the time. People don't really use those kind of fractions. Sevenths just don't seem to be very, very neat to divide. Anyway, bishop d3 is 13% of the time apparently played, but it's one of the best moves. Fantastic. Okay, I'm happy with my bishop d3. Here, e5, yeah, you'd imagine. Again, it's the top. Knight d2. Maybe I should look at this. Because, of course, if they take, we can take with the knight. And that makes a whole lot of sense, actually. And I'm wondering, I do occasionally get into trouble when e5's played, and then they eventually make an f6 break. I'm not really sure. I think I still like this e5, though. And then here, the bishop g5 idea. Has it been played in the database? It has. 500 odd times with a decent win rate for white, I guess. It seems a little dubious, but they played h6, which was the best move, surprisingly enough. I thought this sucked. And you know what? Whatever the little number fluctuations here are with the computer, it takes nothing away from the practical ideas I discussed. It was practically a major issue to play h6 and then castle kingside with this bishop along this diagonal. Like, you've got to then play it very precisely, and my opponent, of course, didn't. You know, they played g6. You know, that was the reason that g6 was induced, and this was the whole... I guess that kind of thing could have happened without h6, but you take my point that this is... It's all practical stuff we're looking for, stuff that's going to make it hard for humans to play. Not playing complete hope chess, of course, but if we give away the tiniest bit of objective evaluation for the sake of some practically very interesting ideas, I'll take that every single day of the week. Now, knight here, this was a little foolish, because honestly, why did I go for knight b5? The knight eventually just got kicked. I should have then just chopped this off and been happy with my pawn structure. You know, bishop back here, g5, f4, okay, fine. I really liked my light squared bishop though, and maybe I was trying to hold on to it too much. They had the opportunity to take, I went back, and then eventually I compelled them to take. I mean, this was a blunder. Plus 0.3 to minus 0.6 is blunder. That's kind of intense, although, okay, minus 0.8. I guess it's just because it crosses that 0.0 threshold. But, I mean, I had the opportunity to, once again, take here, and then presumably, yeah, knight e3 is a good move. I did think worst case scenario, they just have this, but then, okay, whatever, h4. Like, I just don't understand chess, apparently. I was actually very happy to see them take here, and then, I mean, back-to-back terrible moves, apparently. We go blunder and then mistake. Obviously, I was aware the more principled move and more likely objectively sound move, as it transpired to be, was h takes g3. Maybe I don't even need to castle. Maybe my king stays on f1. Maybe I castle anyway. Maybe I break with f4. I don't really know, but this is clearly the kind of more principled approach. If you had to bet which is going to be the best move, probably you should go for h takes most often. However, okay, excuse me, I didn't see that at all. What the hell is this? I still don't really see it. The only reason this is apparently so bad is that they have a knight sack, which even now I'm seeing it doesn't make that much sense to me, because if I just played queen d2 and defended stuff, you'd have bishop c5, and then at that point, oh my lord, d4, takes, bring a rook, and then g... What on earth is happening here? Okay, apparently that could have happened. Why would that not have been the case if I'd taken with my h-pawn? Why does that not work now? Takes. Ah, because this knight's still stable. Right, yeah, now this is an idea. Again, this is an engine line. I'm not expecting... My opponent clearly didn't see it, and they're 22 on 100. I didn't see it. I'm 22 on 100. Let me know in the comments if you saw this. This sacrifice came out of nowhere. The idea is that I'm undermining this rather than there being anything particular about, you know, taking inwards and the general implications of keeping that pawn island rather than making 2 pawn islands, etc. But without that sacrifice, this becomes far less of a mistake because, you know, bishop e7 is one of their best moves. It's their second best move if we ignore that sacrifice. And this is a mistake insofar as it's a missed win. Now I can develop, okay, a little inaccurate. Maybe I could have bounced out via e2 to f4, and we're looking at like sacks here. Again, this is the kind of idea which I was maybe apparently this is still a problem. Just ignore this for a second. This is the kind of idea which is a complete blunder, but I was vaguely alluding to. You can imagine a scenario basically where, you know, things become overworked and there's a sacrifice. So bringing the knight like that, maybe there's some tactical things I'm looking at there, or maybe I'm being immature and too tactical and actually it's a far more positional idea. No one cares because we went knight f3. My opponent should have just not castled, chilled here and played on the queen side, which is admittedly hard to do. Castling is such a natural move, but they should not have castled. Castling was a terrible idea. They did not find any solace on the king side. In fact, they walked directly into the path of all of my pieces, then failed to find the correct plan playing b4, and this is where I become prime Magnus Carlsen. Wait, bishop b1 best move? Okay, bishop c2? Hold on. They're fluctuating here. It really likes knight g4 straight away as well. But bishop c2, okay, effectively indistinguishable from the best move. Fantastic. You know, you let the engine think for a second, and this is effectively indistinguishable. Awesome stuff. We're going to go queen d3, of course. They go g6, and now, you know, ideas like h4 come to mind, but I thought we could start with queen d3 at least. And then I thought we could dance in with the knights, honestly. Clearly, h4, h5 maybe. Stacking the rooks, rook f2, rook here, just occupying f6. I'm so certain. Obviously, this is about to be a very contrived position, but imagine, if you will, that, I don't know, I got to a position where the knight was here, the bishop was here. Right, obviously I can take... Oh yeah, sorry, not that obvious, but I can take on g6 in the end. I'd imagine I can just sack a rook here. Yeah, and I've got this very strong advantage even just giving up the rook, because after takes, I can play e takes, and now this is just a problem forever, and I can maybe go in here, and lolly mate. So, you know, the second g6 is induced. This is now a hole. It's a structural weakness, and of course, that ended up being the downfall of my opponent. Knight g4, we're looking to exploit the hole. You create it. I mean, you create the hole. 2 moves later, we're looking to exploit it. And 1 move after that, we do exploit it. We win ourselves a queen. Thank you very much. We then get the rook in there, which I'm actually very surprised to see is not the best move. I thought I played that like a genius. I thought this was excellent stuff. And of course, the idea was, you know, you just move here, rook sack here, check here, mate. So I was going in for a nice slick cleanup there. They did defend it with the knight, which admittedly I didn't really, you know, spend enough time looking at. Stack the rooks here. I say spend enough time looking at. I just mean I didn't like spend enough time on the move to even think about their possible replies, because this seemed like such a no-brainer. You never get to do anything. We just freeze everything in place. This is also frozen in place guarding this. And at this point, I mean, they just moved the bishop. G4, actually top engine move. I might be a genius. Just pure restriction here. Awesome. And then, yeah, okay. At this point, you notice that they can't move the king, really. I guess they could go king back to here, right? But then we're just swooping in maybe somehow. I said I was going to go after this pawn, honestly. You move the knight, you get mated. You move the rook, you get mated. I guess you can move this rook to d8. In terms of all the non-blunders, you've just got to start pushing pawns over here. I'm going to go win this. Obviously, things are going to be... When this is your best move, you know things aren't going well. But up the queen for the knight and the pawn. We then take this with check. The king moves. And I missed mate in 1. And on that note, I think we'll end the video. I'll leave it in the position where I missed mate in 1. Thank you immensely for watching. If you enjoy this video and you want to see more like it, of course, subscribe to the channel. But also, if you fancy supporting the channel, if you like what I do and you want to see more of it, you want to see me thrive here in this YouTube scene, then check out the Patreon. The link is in the description. There are, I believe, now 30 full episodes like the one you've just seen, but maybe even better. Over on the Patreon, as I say, 30 up right now. There will be one up every single Sunday for the rest of all eternity. You'll get your name in the esteemed patron scroll at the end of all my videos. But go and check it out if you're remotely interested. If you are not, your viewership is nevertheless immensely appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Hasta la vista. Goodbye.